Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode, the podcast show for the average Joe. This is the Wrestling Diaries. I'm your host, Mitchell Roulaine. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a host of other platforms that have podcasts. Leave us a review. Share the content. That helps us to grow. It's very important. Also, if you want to see all these pretty faces, go to YouTube, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell right there for more content. We release once a week. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest on today, Mr. Dr. Gabriel Rezonzew. What is up, Gabriel?
Thank you, Mitchell, for having me.
You're so welcome.
It's an honor.
Real quick, so he's here promoting his book. I'm going to show this so people can see. This is My Road to You. I finished this book like earlier this week, and I got to say it is... it's very gripping. It has a beautiful ending story, but man, there's some dark parts in that book, Gabriel. Let me ask this question starting off. What possessed you to write this book?
Well, Mitchell, before I answer your question, can I sign your book?
Yes,
I'd love
please.
to do that.
I would love for you to do that.
So this is your copy.
Promise I won't sell it on eBay.
No.
Oh, it's Dr. Gabriel. No, I'm kidding.
So we'll make it to Mitchell.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. Very sweet.
Enjoy. So, well, a little bit about my recent history. About 4 years ago, I went through a divorce that kind of rocked my world in ways that I was not expecting. And so one of the things that I had been meaning to do in my life was I wanted to write about my experiences, especially of becoming a more observant Jew. I had grown up in a non-religious, non-observant environment. Very Jewish, very proud of it, very Zionist, very nationalist, but not observant in the religious aspect. And I wanted to just tell people about how that transition evolved as in my life. And I had that goal. Someday I want to write a book. And then all of a sudden, my world was just like completely out of balance, and everything just went upside down. And I thought, you know what? This is that juncture in my life that I think it's good to write my book. All kinds of things happen. Friends and community and the whole thing, and everything went upside down in my life. So I thought that I would just put into words, and on pages. And I started to write. And I had recently married my wonderful wife, Sarah. And I thought, you know what? I'll just start pouring my heart out and see what comes out. And I would wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, and because I worked 2 jobs, so basically it was 2, 3 in the morning up until 5:30, 6 in the morning. I would be writing every day, except Shabbat, except Saturdays, and I would lo and behold, 6 months later, the book was ready to be edited, and so it took me about a year of work to get it to put it together, and I love it.
Now, when you finally finished the book, I got to imagine, I can't speak for you, but I assume that was like a big weight off of your shoulders because you poured out all this emotion on paper through words. And because a lot of it, like, it's real heavy. The book's very heavy, right? Because you're talking about very, very personal details to your life, and I got to imagine that was just a big weight off of you. Because, essentially, like you just said, like you changed your landscape and different things. You essentially adopted almost a new identity, a new environment. You're almost like a completely different person, but a different person in a way. Yeah.
That is true. And that happened 4 years ago. But as you can tell, as you read the book, those changes were not new to me. I was getting used to those type of changes every 7 years, believe it or not, which is I make a correlation with the 7-year cycle in the Jewish calendar that we follow. Mm-hmm. The year of Shemitah, we just started, a few days ago, the 7th year in which the land rests, and in the times of the temple, they would release all the all the people that were bound or they were paying debts, all the debts were forgiven and all kinds of things. And that was a major change for the Jewish nation. And all of a sudden I noticed throughout my life, I'm 61 years old, that every 70 years there was a major change in my life, like major. So this was like, okay, this is the time to just think back and put it into words and hopefully inspire others to see how they can reflect on their lives and see what kind of meaning they can get from their lives through my experience.
Wow. On the 7-year cycle thing, I'd got a bit confused because when I was reading in the beginning, it said your first 7-year cycle, and then, or what was it? No, was it something was off? Like I was like, wait a second, there's something that seems off about this. Like it's like ahead by 7 years or something.
Correct.
Like your first 7-year cycle, you were 14 or something, or maybe it was the second you were. I mean, I was like, what? So what is that all about? Like I was very confused about that, and I think I remember reading. Even Sarah had asked you about that because she was like, oh, the math seems kind of off. Why is that? Why is there like a 7-year like missing point in that cycle period?
Okay, so when you work in cycles, when you translate it to numbers, sometimes it gets off because the first cycle that I lived, it was my first 7 years of life, which I remember, just a few things, and there's not much in my book about that. But my second, I start when I turned 7. Then I started, or after my 7th birthday, then I started my second cycle. Okay. So when I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, I'm into my second cycle already. So it just keeps going like that. Okay. So that's why it's a little bit, but I'd rather relate to it as cycles because it just makes more sense to put all the contents of, for example, the living the drug wars in Colombia and surviving all of that madness that we live there, all that massacres and killings and bombs and explosions and in surviving all of that went into one specific cycle, and then all of a sudden everything changed. Then things quiet down. Then I came to America, and then it was totally a different life, different chapter in my life. It was like, it was like you put the first part of your book here, and then you open a second part of your book, and it's like a different story.
Yeah, when reading about the parts when you were still in Colombia dealing with the Pablo Escobar stuff, it gave me anxiety, especially when you were working in the hospital and you were an older man at that point. I think you were done with college and you started, I guess that was your residency at that point. And then the one like head guy from like that cartel in that area that you were living in was there. He had all the bodyguards around him and you weren't sure who he was, and then you realized later. Right. When I read or listen or see anything, I always like to try to put myself in that situation. Like I literally meditate on what it would be like. And I was like, man, I would just be on edge. Like this guy, he's a dangerous person. Like this guy could just end, like you could just be killed. Nobody would know where you're at. They'd never see you again. And you were talking about how you try to keep your composure and be professional. And then you got him out of the hospital. Like, oh, this is too serious. We got to get you somewhere else. And I was like, smart move, Gabriel. But man, I can't imagine I can, but I can't fully imagine. Like you can't ever fully imagine it unless you physically are there. But I can imagine just this very visceral, very on edge, right? Like having to be there for those times.
Yeah, that specific circumstance. I was speaking with my wife about it, and she's like, "Put it down in your book." That was a powerful experience. To just come into the triage room, and all of a sudden, I know this guy. I've seen this guy, very familiar guy, and all of a sudden, he's the second in charge of the Medellin cartel, and at that time, and wow, and but it's very respectful. I had dealt with people in that environment, not that high of a level. Yeah, they're very respectful. If you're gonna do something for them, they treat you nice and everything. I was not really scared about them doing anything to me. I was scared about other people attacking him because they did not respect any space.
Yeah.
You know, the
and then- yeah.
Cali cartel and the Medellin cartel were at it with each other. They were bombing, they were killing, they were shooting each other. They were, and those attacks were. And this guy there was a price on his head.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank God we got him out of there.
Yeah, I can't imagine like there being a standoff in a hospital between two different gang factions. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reading that. I was like, oh, that's my boy. He handled it well. He used his brains. He used his smarts. Outside of that situation, had you ever came in that close to contact with anybody in the cartel or involved with Pablo Escobar or anything like that?
Not at
outside
all.
Of that?
No, I would try to stay away from all of that. But there were times when I was married to my first wife, and we would just say goodbye, and I would just say goodbye in the morning. I would leave, and we would just say goodbye as if I was not coming back, because there were road bombs exploding all over the city. Medellin is a gorgeous, wonderful city, big, huge, mega city. But back then, it was a war zone. Pablo Escobar turned it into a war zone.
Yeah,
and it was not easy. And if you had cops like driving in front of you, you would just stop and let him go, because they were bombing their cars, their trucks, all over the place. There was a bounty on each cop back then. Pablo Escobar would pay for each dead cop.
Yeah,
it was rough.
Jeez Louise, man.
It was rough.
I'm glad you got out of there.
Yeah, well, and then things, then Pablo Escobar got murdered, got killed by the police, and everything kind of it took a while, about a decade, and the whole thing cleaned up. And Medellin, it's a prosperous, beautiful city, and telling my wife,
you got to take her there sometime.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're planning on a trip right now. It's really nice.
Take Marshall too.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody's wondering, his beautiful wife Sarah and his nephew Marshall are over in this area. So people are like, "What is he talking to? Why does he always do that?" That's great, man.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I don't ever really, when I have guests on here, I don't make bullet points. I just talk to people naturally. I'm a very curious person already, very inquisitive. So I'd like to learn about people and find out about them, because it's like psychological currency for me. It really is. But when I was early on reading in your book, I was like, man, I'm definitely, one of the questions I'm just thinking of, I want to ask him is how far back his Jewish lineage goes back. And when I was thinking of that question, lo and behold, I read into the next chapter, and then you talked about it. And on both sides of the parents, what a history lineage. So you had, I think it was on your mother's side, from the roots from Africa, right?
Right.
And then from your father's side, Poland originally, through Europe and all that. And I was like, wow, what a lineage. That's incredible. And how far have you ever tried to trace how far back it really, really goes?
I have not.
No.
Like the DNA testing and all of that, have not done it. However, I do have a lot of information from up to my grandparents from my father's side. They were very observant Jews who lived in a small town in Siedlce in Poland, and most of the town was Jewish. Poland was it had the largest Jewish population in the world. It had over 3 million Jews before World War II. And thank God that my grandparents decided to leave Poland, not because things were rough. Jews had been persecuted for centuries.
Yeah.
So they were used to, things like that. But they decided to go look for different opportunities in America.
Yeah.
And America was everything. It was from North America, Central America, wherever you can find anything that was America. So they landed in South America, in Colombia.
Yeah.
But it was
they got out just in time.
They got out in time.
I was reading that. Was it 1934?
Right, correct. That's correct.
That was close. That was a close one.
That was very close, because they would have waited a few years, and it was a different story.
Yeah.
And all their brothers, sisters on both sides, from my grandfather, my grandmother, all of them perished, and nobody survived.
Jeez,
and it was very, very sad. But I was named after my grandfather. I never met him, but the Polish Ashkenazi Jew story is very, very interesting and has some, a lot of tragedy in it, and then a lot of luck and I guess God's plan. What we call Ashkacha Pratit. Ashkacha Pratit is like God's plan is somehow that for them to survive. But then on my mother's side, it's a totally different world. She comes from the Jerusalem Jews that had a different culture completely, all Middle Eastern. And then
you were talking in your book about the differences in cuisine.
Oh, absolutely.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, when
tabbouleh.
Correct. So my mother came from that environment. They migrated to Egypt during World War I, and she grew up in Egypt in a world that seemed so absolutely fantastic. It was, Mitchell. I could just see my grandmother. I would sit by her, on her bed. Alongside with all my cousins, and she would tell us stories, how she was friends with the king's daughters, King Farouk's daughters, and they would invite her to the palace, and then they would just play with the dolls and stuff that they had in the palace, and it was like,
it's like a fairy tale.
It was like a fairy tale. I must have been, probably 5, 6, 7 years old, and those stories were just amazing. And then I did some research, of course, for my book. I found out so many other things that my grandmother had survived. How she migrated to Colombia with her second husband, and all the difficulties that she had. Eventually, she divorced, and carried on her own. But from that milieu, my mother was born in Colombia, so she was first generation Colombian. I was second generation Colombian from both sides. And then how her and my father, from totally different cultures, both Jewish, eventually made it happen, which was not a common thing for an Ashkenazi Jew to marry a Sephardic Jew.
Yeah,
it was not back then. It was a little bit of a no. But now it's a different story. But they made it happen, and I came from that combination of traditions and cultures that were basically very different from each other.
Wow, that's amazing. You're a very cultured person. That's for very sure. I've told a bunch of people that I was going to have a Colombian immigrant Jewish doctor on my show, and they're like, "Whoa, that's a mouthful." I was like, "Oh, so he's an author." Like, wow, what a mouthful. I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Yeah, you'll have plenty to talk about." I was like, "Absolutely, I'll have plenty to talk about." My dad, my last name is Roulain, which is French, and he had done some research on it, and he told me some years ago that the Roulains that came out of France, he tracked the lineage of that and the name and where it came from, and he said that we. Based on what he had seen, he believes that we are descendant from the tribe of Reuben. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, son. He's like, I spent a lot of time researching this. He's like, he was like, there could be, maybe I might be off on something. He's like, but based on what I saw, like, he's like, yeah, I think and even the name Roulain kind of like translated through, thousands of years or from Reuben into Roulain. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I haven't had a chance to research it myself. Not that I don't believe my dad, obviously, but I was like, man, how about that? One of the 12 tribes representing.
The tribe of Reuben was a very important tribe. Reuben was the oldest of all the 12. He was the firstborn, and Reuben was. It was a populous tribe. It's not the most populous, but it was a populous tribe, and They got dispersed very quickly because they settled in the east of the Jordan.
Yeah,
River.
I had a theory, a hypothesis I came up with based on that. I was like, Reuben was the oldest, and generally, obviously, the oldest child is going to be the wisest, right? Because he's lived longer. He's the oldest. He's kind of like a pseudo father even to some of the other ones. But I was like, all the Rue Lanes in my family, I've kind of like seen all of them, and we all share like very different personalities. But something we all share is like all of us are very deep in our minds. We're very observant and have a lot of perception to things around. And I noticed that about all the people that are the Rue Lanes in my family. And I haven't really said anything to them. I observed this, right? I watch them. I'm observing them, observing like life, and they like, I don't know, very analytical and things like that. And I was like, I wonder if that's a correlation, like with wisdom. Maybe not, but you get, I come up with crazy stuff in my head all the time.
Very possible, yes, indeed.
Yeah. You, for the longest, you said earlier that for the longest time that you had an idea to want to write a book, even well before you had written it. Like it just was in your mind. And I'm assuming like on your 7-year cycles, the experiences that you had, because so many dramatic things had happened.
Right.
I'm assuming that you wrote those down, right? Like maybe you kept a journal or a diary of sorts, and you wrote it down, and maybe that fed into you writing my Road to You.
I wish.
No,
I wish I would have been like my wife. My wife writes everything down.
Oh yeah,
she writes everything down.
I saw your vision board, Sarah, at the apartment.
Oh yeah. No, I just. What I did is, when I would wake up 3:30 in the morning, 4, I would just close my eyes, put myself into that situation. Mm-hmm. What happened in 1981? What happened in 2001 when I landed in this country, just a few months after 9/11? All the details. And I would just try to bring it. And as soon as they would just start flow, then I would grab a pen and start writing. I didn't type. I hand wrote my book. So I would just write pages and pages and pages and pages of details and pages, everything that would come back to from memory. And so that's how I wrote my entire book, from remembering and just putting myself back in those situations. A friend of mine who read the book, and he said, Gabriel, your book is very intense. It's very personal. It's very deep. And you share a lot of intimacy in it, but also there's a lot of pain. And I said, yeah, that's exactly, because I relived the pain. I relived the happiness. I relived the emotions. And as I was reliving them, I was just putting them down into pages. I was crying. I was laughing. I was stressed. I was suffering from insomnia again. I was not feeling that I was not being able to pay my bills, or that that the world was trying to collapse on top of me. All kinds of those circumstances that I lived. I relived them as I was writing every single page of my book.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. I agree with him 100%. I felt a lot of the different emotions from you by reading your words. Like I felt happiness, I felt nostalgia, I felt anger, anguish, triumph, I felt bitterness. It was all there. Like I was reading it. I was like, oh, he was bitter when he wrote this. Oh, he was looking back and like reminiscing right here. And I was like, man, that's powerful, especially for like your first book, and you self-published it and all that.
Correct.
And edited it yourself. For that to be your first book, it was a good read. I mean, it's over 300 pages. I just got done reading a book about finance some weeks ago. That's just, I think it's about a dozen pages less than yours. And it took me forever to get through that book because it's just, I mean, it's a different thing, obviously, but I like stories and stuff, and I'm reading about finance. I needed to, but yeah, it just, I was like, man, this reading his book, it just went by so quick. I had originally started reading your book when I had borrowed it from a friend, mutual friend. And I got about halfway through with it, and I have a problem where I'm reading and I'm reading like a bunch of different things. But I knew you were going to come on the podcast at some point. I was like, and I definitely want to have this. I just want to read it in general because it's a book from somebody I know. That's amazing. I had another guy on here that he's a published author, and he's written like, I don't know, like 10 books now, and they're all he writes on philosophy and stuff like that. So I've read a couple of his pieces. But I was in the middle of it, and then I I was reading some other books, and then I wasn't able to get you on the podcast then, and I kind of like, and it wasn't because it definitely wasn't boring or anything like that. It just, sometimes it just happens, and then we kind of rekindle a little bit. I was like, oh, I need to pick this up and start taking a look at it. I can't believe it. I hate it when I don't finish a book. It feels really weird. Like I feel unaccomplished, especially if I was interested in the book. But there's a lot of other books like I've done that. At home right now, if you went and saw my bookshelf, there's so many bookmarks in different books and all this stuff to where I had a friend to be like, why you've got a lot of bookmarks. Like, did you not finish? I was like, oh yeah, I need to finish those. It's on my to-do list. But in finishing it, man, I was just like, God, it's so raw. It's so real, not to make too big a deal about it, but yeah, man, it's like I almost could feel like what you were going through. And I guess that's important when people put words down on paper, words that are meaningful, because it's kind of their soul leaking out,
That is true, Mitchell. One of the things that happens is that eventually things get resolved.
Mm.
So, when one of the ways that I made my book to flow is just keep you interested. And a lot of people have told me, it's like, I just can't put it down. It was just like the book just grabbed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed up until 3:00 in the morning because I just couldn't put it down. So, so the pain gets resolved. The anguish gets resolved, but you have to live the process, and the forgiveness has to happen, and you have to work on it. But it gets to a point where, yeah, there's bitterness, there's sadness, there's anger, there's disgust, there is absolute and eventually the dust settles, and then you pick up the pieces, and I also went through that explanation of telling how, and it didn't happen on its own. It was like God was sending me all these tests and all these circumstances, and then he would send me the right person that I would have to meet with in order to discover an aspect of my life that I need to work on.
Yeah.
And it's it's not a done thing.
Yeah, at the end you I don't want to say what the
it's
end. It's a continuing journey.
Correct.
That's all I'll say.
That's right.
I'm trying not to give too many spoilers out here of the book. I just want to be like, yeah, so this happened. No, people, get the book. Get the book. Get it.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon. I self-published it, but I had it professionally edited.
Okay.
Wonderful editor. She's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, we work together very, very well, and the book has was edited by her, but I did self-publish. Yes.
Yeah. Did you do you plan on writing more, doing some more pieces of literature?
It's a good question. If, a couple of friends have asked me that they can't wait to see my my next book. And I have a couple of ideas of things that I want to work on, and we'll see. I can't commit to it right now, but I most likely yes.
Yeah, one personal question I wanted to ask without getting into too much detail, because once again, people read the book. You had in the story, you had some dissension and disconnect with some family members. Do you think any of them have they read your book? They know you wrote it? Do you know any of that information? I know you're disconnected with some of them.
Right. I doubt it. Okay. Unfortunately, yes, I doubt it. We'll see. I'm working on that. I'm still working on that. Hopefully they'll read it.
Nice.
Hopefully they'll read it, and hopefully they'll reflect on it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to get into, so we can give the book a rest for a minute. You're being a MD now. Are you practicing medicine now? Or are you still just doing research here? What's all that about?
So I came to this country with an MD degree that I had been. I was a certified medical doctor in Colombia, but when I came here, that degree didn't mean anything.
Huh.
It didn't mean anything because I had to go through all the certification, the medical licensing, there's 3 steps, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the visa that I came in with would not allow me to do that.
Okay.
I mean, I could take the test, but I could not.
I think you covered this in the book
correct.
as well.
So it was a struggle at the beginning, and eventually the university decided to hire me to do research.
Yeah.
And my boss was just amazing. I mean, he was very patient, and I learned all the disciplines of research, many disciplines of research. And I got into that world, Mitchell, and it was just captivating. The whole immigration process took 15 years for me to become a citizen. So during those 15 years, I just evolved into the world of research, got deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I never went back to seeing patients or traditional medical practice.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it. I really enjoy my work. I really enjoy it. I love it. Basically, we are the ones who determine what the clinicians are going to be doing out in the field, in the hospital.
Yeah.
So based on our information, we can make better decisions for them, and they can implement those decisions out there.
Okay.
And so it gave me a lot of power, a lot of sense of achievement when many of my works were published. And thank God I have some great publications in 2 of the best journals and scientific journals in the world. And I just stayed there. To start all over at my age, once I got my green card, and then all the 5 years waiting for my citizenship, all of that. From that point on, I was already in my 50s. It was like, I don't want to start all over again. I'm happy here. I'm just going to stay in research, and it has evolved very well from there. So, yep, that's. I did clinical work for many years.
Nice. And you're over at UAB, correct?
That's correct.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is there ever, I mean, you're happy with what you're doing, like you just said, you're happy and you just love what you're doing. This is really good. This is what you're putting yourself in. Do you think there'll ever be an itch to come up for you to get those certifications here in this country to practice medicine in the United States? Or is that just kind of a boat that sailed off for you?
I think so. I think I'll just stay in research.
But it's great because you do have the accolades of being a doctor, so it's still useful to you, I'm sure, even with what you do now, and then just in everyday life, you apply a tourniquet to somebody who's bleeding out on the street or just whatever.
Right. No, that's,
to be too dramatic about it.
That's correct.
Everybody's bleeding out on the street. We need Gabriel. Get a tourniquet.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I as an MD, it gives me a somewhat of an advantage to know that how to implement the information that I'm researching on. I know how it gets applied. I know how it gets put into practice.
Yeah.
So I do have that advantage, and of course, I will always be a doctor.
Sure.
It's part of my.
You've been a ton of stuff, dude. A ton of stuff. This guy has been a doctor, a research person, a firefighter. You did like sales and stuff with what is it, Herbalife?
Correct.
And all kinds of stuff. Your family ran a hat factory.
Hat factory.
You've done everything.
That's
this
right.
guy's done so many things. It's
then
crazy. It makes me feel lazy.
I landed in this country. I couldn't do anything with my diploma. I had to pay my bills, so I worked as a
waiter. I forgot about that.
As a server at a restaurant.
Serving up some.
It was like just put that diploma away. Forget about it. You just do the best you can. Learn how to be a good server, and I just did it.
I think another really good piece that I picked up from the book and from you specifically is you're just a creature of adaptation. Like you adapted. You went into different environments. You dealt with different stresses, and you didn't let it just bury you. You found a way around, and you still progress through. Because progress is not linear. It's like it ebbs and flows in and out. But as long as it's trending upwards, and I feel like that's what you did. You adapted to your situation, and that's really important. A lot of people, things get tough and they give up, they tap out. That's it. Wow, I can't deal with this. I'm closing up.
I don't
But-
even know what that is. I just keep going.
Yeah, that's good.
And I hope that
Tenacity, man. You got tenacity.
I hope that I can inspire my readers to never give up. You just adapt. Sometimes the limitations are in our head, just in our brain. Those paradigms, those limits that we put to ourselves. Well, I could have said, I have this degree, and I know. No, you just do whatever you have to do, and you deal with the situation in whatever you have to. And I was reading my ancestors, the Jewish people that went to in the ghetto in Warsaw. They created their own medical society. They lived there for, I believe, it was about 1.5 to 2 years before the Nazis just bombed it out of them, and it just killed them all. But before that, they were in very dire circumstances. Doctors, researchers, learned people, and nurses, and lab techs. So they created their own medical society. They kept studying. They kept helping the people the best way they could. They didn't have hardly any medicines. But they worked with what they had.
Yeah.
And I guess life gives you whatever life is going to give you. And I believe that there is a master plan, that God just absolutely has something for you. And you just got to do the best you can with what you have.
Sure. Amen. Amen. You do the things and they will be done. Yeah.
And I hope until I was telling my wife, a friend of mine just says, well, I just turned 60, so I don't do this anymore. I don't do that anymore. I said, I'm 61 and I keep doing everything the same way because I don't want to change or feel old or feel that I cannot do, or that I'll just keep doing whatever I need to do in order to just live a full life.
Yeah, I keep forgetting constantly that you are, in fact, a little older in your 60s and stuff like that, because you just have such a very good energy. You have a very youthful energy. And obviously you look youthful. Like you look like somebody that could be like I don't know, maybe their late 40s, mid 40s.
Thank you.
The earliest or something like that. So you're in good health. You look good, you seem healthy and happy. And that's really good, man. That's really important.
Yeah.
So let's get to the point of the show where I try to go a little bit deeper. We've gotten pretty deep with some things, especially if somebody reads your book. They'll see just how deep the rabbit hole goes with you. But specifically, Gabriel Rezonzew, what are things right now, or maybe even lingering things from the past, or it could be a culmination of them, that you personally wrestle with? What are the the monsters in your closet and the demons under your bed nipping at your ankles? Mm-hmm. What are those things that you wrestle with, man?
Well, that's a powerful question. Mostly, I'm still in the process of forgiving. Forgiving many things that happened, during the process of my divorce and my relationship with my daughters. That you can read all the details in my book. And I'm in constant process of forgiveness of things that were done to me by my ex-wife and her friends or other people, or community, feeling ostracized, and so I think I've made a lot of progress in that regard. Just cleaning my closet. But it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing. Forgiveness doesn't happen from one moment to the next. So my wife has been a rock, an absolute rock in that department. She's just she's by my side, and she's mostly that. But I feel a lot cleaner now in my soul and in my emotions.
And like you can breathe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's worth it, but it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Because there's a benefit to holding a grudge. There's a benefit to when someone did something to you Um, and then you're like, how am I going to forgive this person?
Yeah.
And then, sending an email. Hey, I am sorry for hating you so much. Please forgive me for hating you so much.
Yeah.
Even though in my heart, I know what you did to me, but that's in the past. So it is a process, but it's a beautiful process. And I think it helps. I hope it helps all my readers and whoever is listening. Just let it go. Let it go. One of the things I said when I lost everything after my divorce, or basically most everything, it was like whatever belonged to me that was taken away, God will replace it, and whatever didn't belong to me, then He won't. And once I came to that realization, I made peace with it. Whatever was lost was lost. It probably didn't belong to me, or my connection with those things were. And thank God, you helped me a few days ago to move to our new house. After 4 years of losing my house like completely and being taken away by an employee. But you'll read more about it in the book. But I felt cheated, and I felt like, wow, I can't believe good friends of mine just totally taking advantage of, like, wow. I was very bitter. But then I made peace. Okay, then perhaps that was the point where I was meant. The house was not meant.
Yeah.
And now, thank God, God has provided me with a new beautiful house with my wonderful wife and Marshall, my nephew, and we're happy. So all those things, eventually they settle, but it takes time and it takes work.
Sure.
It doesn't happen by itself.
Oh yeah.
I know people who live, in bitterness for years and years and years. But I don't recommend that. It's best to make the effort to just let it go. And you don't have to be friends with the people who hurt you. You don't have to be buddies with them. Again, if you don't want to, you don't have to. All you need to do is just let go of the emotion, let go of the pain, let go of the, and whatever happened. And there was a reason for it to happen. And in Jewish philosophy, I believe that. And that helps me. There was a reason why this situation had to happen. And I'm okay with it. And maybe God has something bigger for me. But I have learned to make peace with loss.
That's great. Very well said. Very well said, Gabriel. I've been asking this question for a little while now. I think it's very creative and interesting. This is me patting my own ego for anybody listening. But let's say, theoretically, Matt here, he's a tech genius. He's always tinkering with things and fixing computers and systems and all this stuff. Let's say he comes up with this telephone time machine, right? You pick it up and you can dial it at any point in the past and the future, and you can talk to people in that era. But specifically for people, we only have a setting where they can only call themselves. And let's say we let you borrow this telephone time machine, and you can call yourself in the past, maybe the future, but most people pick past just because it's what they've already lived, and you don't know what the future holds, obviously. You call yourself in the past in a point where you feel like that Gabriel needs a conversation with you now. What Gabriel do you call, and what do you say to him?
I would call Gabriel at age 22.
Okay. Why that age?
Just at the beginning of the year 1982, before my father's passing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a time where I needed some guidance, some support on how to deal with so much that was happening and prepare me for all what was going to happen after his passing. But one of the things I would definitely tell Gabriel in 1982 2 is talk to your dad and talk to him heart to heart, and do not deny his illness. Do not deny that it's not good. Do not, and just be able to resolve things. You see, we denied all of that information to my father, and I feel that I should have stood up to my mom and to my uncle and aunt, decided that, just make the medical decisions, but don't involve him because, we don't want him to be hurting. Well, he knew, of course, that things were not. And then he passed away in my arms, and there were so many things that I could have talked to him about. So many things that we could have resolved, or just make peace with his disease, and with and be okay that he was going to move on to a different plane. I was only 22, and I feel that I should have taken care of that. So I would definitely give myself advice, and don't just do it.
That's beautiful, man. That's very beautiful. 100%, not blowing smoke. In finality, I want to ask, and then I'll let you promote the book and anything else, any other projects you've got going on, and then I'm going to sign this bad boy off. What legacy do you want to leave behind on this world, Gabriel? What's your legacy? What poems do they write about you? What's etched into your eulogy?
Inspiration about overcoming.
Overcoming.
Whew.
I like it.
I don't ask for less challenges. I ask for more strength. I learned that from a great man. Jim Rohn said, ask for more wisdom. Ask for more abilities to deal with. Don't ask for less problems. Less, and that has played a very important role in my life. I don't expect less problems, less issues, less challenges. I expect more wisdom of myself. So hopefully, through my book, I have inspired you and all my readers and our listeners who will pick up a copy and go through some beautiful, beautiful, deep, insightful pages, and at least get that memo, get that message. Just get yourself inspired to overcome, and do it. And that's how we are where we are right now.
Excellent. Sometimes your struggles are your salvation.
Absolutely.
Gabriel, you were awesome, man.
Thank you.
High
Thank you,
five.
Mitchell.
You did an awesome job, dude. It's good talking to you. I hope you had fun doing this.
Oh, well, I was nervous, but
you hit it really well.
I was like, what's going to happen?
You did a good job.
What kind of questions is going to ask? But it was beautiful. It was a good time. I just want everyone to make sure that get a copy. Go to Amazon.com. And in fact, I have it in Spanish. Si tú hablas español, busca una copia de Mi Sendero Hacia Ti. Mi Sendero Hacia Ti. In English, My Road to You. I wrote both. I wrote the English first, and then I translated to Spanish. I had a lot of family members who's like, we want to read your book, but we don't know English. So I wrote it in Spanish. It took me about 6 months, and I also published it. So it's available on Amazon, My Road to You. Let me know if you want a signed copy. Just email me at grezonzew@hotmail.com. Gabriel Rezonzew, grezonzew @hotmail.com. And I'll be happy to arrange for you to get a signed copy. And Mitchell, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.
I appreciate it, man.
All right.
Once again, thanks for being on. You are just a busy little bee, man. It's hard to squash you. Ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public. Go to YouTube for the video content. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more content we release once a week. Please leave us a review. It helps us show up in more algorithms for us to grow in the community and for people to get around and seeing all these inspirational stories from different people. And a lot of these people, for people that live around me personally, locally, they're in your own community. Like these are people that are surrounding you. And these are the things that they're dealing with and they're wrestling with. Gabriel, his book, I implore a lot of people to get it, to read it. It's very good. It's very gripping. And it shows that, sometimes your struggles are, in fact, your salvation. And you just got to keep pressing forward because it's very important to your life. And one thing I always try to tell a lot of people too is like, maybe it's good to put your faith in something. And this isn't like, I'm not trying to promote any specific belief, whether it's Judaism or Christianity or whatever it is. But sometimes it's good to put faith in something. Because one thing that you can count on 100% of the time is that people are going to let you down. And I say this, and some people, they take a misinterpretation of what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we are perfectly imperfect, and you can count on people to let you down 100% of the time, whether it's as small or as big as it is. So sometimes you have to put your faith in something else and keep pressing forward. It's so important. It really is. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just an average guy, but these are my opinions. And you can agree and you can disagree, but either way, it doesn't make them any less powerful coming out of my mouth. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode with me and Gabriel here, and get his book, My Road to You. What do you wrestle with, and how can you beat it? One love.